questions into five different sections. Uh, One each for our SRAM, sourcing, reviewing, articulating, and manuscripting. And the fifth one is generic questions, general questions, which were not a part of each any of this mode. I mean, any of this component, but these were generic one. Uh, I suppose that the PPT is visible to all. Can anybody help me out with?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
Yes, sir.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So to move ahead with this live question answer session, uh, let me begin with a sourcing. Uh, so first question on this sourcing was you have discussed entire webinar concentrating on the top 10 journals and papers. Sir, many times we do not have the access of such top end journals, and neither our university has, especially during this lockdown period. So, I mean, I could understand this entire question was um, on how to access those FT50 kind of a journal or any other journals which are paid in nature, and normally maybe our university system has the access of those journals, or maybe even if the university has access of those journals, we cannot access it during this kind of a time. So the answer to this question is there are, I mean, several pirated websites which will allow you to download such a top end journal article, right? However, because this is a public platform, I'm unable to answer you the exact name of those websites. But yeah, your question is easily answered or resolved by using such websites which will allow you to download the paper. Even if your university system has the access or not having the access, you can access such papers. You can download those papers to your computer system, and you can access those for lifelong. So there is certain websites which will allow you to download those kind of a paper, which are normally a very highly paid papers. Then another question was on how to use Mendeley, and on Mendeley there were one or two more questions. Would like to learn how to operate Mendeley from you, and please throw some light on digital summarization with the help of Mendeley. So yeah, Mendeley is one of the database wherein I mean that has been created by Elsewhere. It is an Elsewhere service wherein you can download that Mendeley software to your laptop, or you can use the Mendeley software online. It is up to you how you want to use that Mendeley software. You can create your account, you can download the software, but the participant must understand that Mendeley is not the facility which will fetch the papers automatically. No, Mendeley requires you to add those papers to your database. Of course, Mendeley works on an artificial intelligence, so that, say, for example, you are working on a subject like operational stress, and you added few papers on operational stress in your Mendeley account, then Mendeley keep on suggesting you some new papers which are available on operational stress. Still, these are only the suggestions. Even if you click on that paper, Mendeley will not take up those paper automatically, especially if the papers are paid one. So Mendeley is just the database to what you can say to synthesize your paper and use them for future reference. The very positive use of a Mendeley is that if you use the Mendeley and synchronize it with your Microsoft Word, then in that case, Mendeley would directly prepare your bibliography, I mean your reference list. However, I had gone through several such cases where the bibliography being prepared using Mendeley were not according to the required format. It means even if you ask Mendeley to prepare in APA format, but because Mendeley were missing out on some details, because when you add any paper to Mendeley database, you have two options. One, either you can edit manually or you can edit directly. I mean, system generated. So if you add them directly, system generated, manually would take up some data directly fetching from either Google Scholar or from Scopus. And when they fetch up such data, many a time it has happened that in case of, say for example, year of publication, it took the volume, or sometime in case of page number, it took the source. I mean, it took the issue. This kind of problem happens, and sometimes many of these values like this volume or issue or name of the I mean all the name of the authors, these are missing one in Mendeley, and that will lead to either wrong or incomplete bibliography. And such incomplete bibliography would hurt us when we submit those papers with a good quality journal. They will straightforward ask us to review the paper and to prepare the bibliography properly. So, my only request, humble request to all the participants is definitely one should use Mendeley. I am not against the use of Mendeley. However, one should not totally rely on Mendeley. I mean, I'm sure that at the end, when some editor will send us a note that your bibliography is not proper, you are not able to answer them that, sorry, sir, it was not made by me, it was not prepared by me, it was prepared by my Mendeley account. Sorry, your Mendeley account is not responsible for that. Only we are responsible for it. So even if you use Mendeley or any other software, Mendeley is just the very popular name in the field of on the landscape of research. However, you can use EndNotes, you can use BibRef, uh, even your Word has a facility to prepare bibliography. There is a inbuilt feature in the Microsoft Word which will let you prepare your bibliography straightforward directly. So these features are available. However, these features are not 100% foolproof. Always keep understanding that you have to make it foolproof, and then only you can rely on them. Otherwise, blindly do not rely on any of this software or a database. Can you name some software for citations? Actually, I little bit disagree with this question. There is no software for citations. There is a software to manage the citations. I mean, you have to download the paper and you have to put those paper in software. Software will not directly let you cite the papers. So, yep, Mendeley is, as I named a few, Mendeley, BibRef, EndNotes, these are all the citation management software. These are not software for citations, but citation management. And another question was, can you show us how to use those softwares? Frankly speaking, I do not use Mendeley. Of course, I used to use Mendeley earlier. However, as I said that even I myself had some issue with a Mendeley, an issue in a sense that Mendeley has not put up all the references properly. And unfortunately, I submitted a paper to a very high-end journal, and my paper was a straightforward rejection by putting up one of the major comment, and that was highlighted one that you have not properly take care about your reference. So that day I deleted Mendeley account. I mean, I deleted Mendeley from my laptop. And presently, whenever I prepare my research paper for high-end journals, I use Google Scholar. That is, I search the paper on Google Scholar, click on that site, and copy paste the entire APA or MLS style of citations, whichever is required as per the need of the hour, need of the journal. And there is another question was, can you suggest some social science database except Google Scholar? My answer is mentioned with this blue ink pen. You can just click on, you can just note down this particular database for SSCI, that is a Social Science Cited Index. SSCI is a Social Science Cited Index. It has been created using Scopus database, and the web link to access those SSCI databases ssci.isi-database.org. This is the link by clicking on which or by searching through which you will get the entire database of those journals which belongs to the category of social science. Beside this database, you can use a facility of Web of Science, WOS. Web of Science is the database being created by Thomson Router, and Thomson Router is considered to be one of the best company. I mean, one of the best company which is working in research and education part, and one of their services is Web of Science. So you refer the official homepage of a Web of Science and just search on. I mean, in that search engine, you can just put up social science index, and they will show you again hundreds and thousands of the journals with the social science. Now, moving further, I just give me a moment. Somebody asked for the permission. Okay, so now let me continue with the discussion. Okay, another query was I have a query on the first step. My research area is supposed to be metabolic syndrome, and the subject is not covered in FT50 or ABDC journal. Uh, uh, so, what would be my first step if the first step is to search the Scopus? Then Scopus would show 239 journals on this particular subject matter. So, do I check each journal one by one for the way, like you mentioned while explaining about it? Okay, I could make up your question. So our starting point of sourcing was to start with FT50 or ABDC journal or a Scopus journal. Uh, Frankly speaking, I'm not the person from the field where which I mean the topic which you mentioned, like metabolic syndrome, but it seems to me that it could be something pertaining to the medical science. If it is so, I again I'm skeptical. We can discuss on this particular aspects when we will have a one-on-one live one-on-one question answer. But yeah, if it is pertaining to something related with the medical science, then probably the best journal in the field of medical science is the journal from Nature. Nature is the best journal. So FT50 is the least for management. Nature is the least for medical and paramedical, and for engineering and pure science, there is a journal called Science, right? So Science, Nature, and FT50, they are the supreme in their own field. So if a particular topic belongs to that, then probably you can search through Nature. You can start with the Nature, and you can start your journey from the first paper from Nature. If your field is not covered under medical or paramedical, then you can start with the best journal of Scopus. Whenever you search any word on Scopus will provide you with the search results, and in that search results, they always put your search result from top to bottom. I mean, from the best journal to the worst journal in that search engine, in that search area. So the first journal which is shown by, I mean, the Scopus, and that would be, I'm sure, it would be Q1 journal with a very high H index. So the first journal that is being shown by Scopus, that is going to be your first journal to start with the journey like we used to start with FT50 journal. I hope I could make out your answer, but still, in case if I missed out, we will surely take care of it. Uh, what is the first preference we should have while considering the literature for the research paper on the subjects like organization behavior, or to be more precise, organization stress, employee engagement, etc.? Should it be on the basis of high citations or basis of origin? No. If you want to study the, I mean, to answer your question, if you want to study the basics of organization behavior and try to understand what is the present scenario in your particular field, always go with the high citations. The basis of origin, I what I understood by this word basis of origin is that originally when the term was coined, who has come the coin and what has happened and all these things. That is what if you consider that as a basis of origin. So I request you to go with the high citations. Only reason is that high citations paper will give you an idea what is the present trend, what is the current trend in your particular domain. Again, I'm not from the domain of OB or HR, but yes, once you read those high citation papers, it will give you an idea that what is the present trend, what is the current trend in your field, like organization stress and employee engagement, and that will give you an idea. So this is the idea generation stage, and for idea generation, I always believe in citing the high cited papers. Yes, once you get the idea, once you have your idea on paper, and once you start writing something on it, and that too, if you're writing something on it for writing for thesis, then you can start searching for the basis of origin, because thesis would always require to put down the definitions and who termed the coin and how it was developed and all these things. But still, if you are writing the research paper based upon this particular topic, then probably a good high-end quality journals does not require any definition or does not require this kind of introduction that who has come this coin first time and how the field was developed. That is not much required for high-end quality research papers. For thesis, definitely you require that to be. Moving further, these are some questions pertaining to review. What should be done under reviewing? And some of the questions are, I mean, to start with, would you like to, sir, would like to know from reader's perspective, as when we are reading the literature review manuscript, LR manuscript, how to interpret the same in our review work for PhD? Whenever you are reading the LR manuscript, and to answer this question, whenever you read the LR manuscript of your particular field, the basic purpose is to understand who are those researchers who had a significant work in your field. I mean, the basic objective is to understand that who did how much work and whose work was more significant. So whenever we are reading those LR manuscripts, we should not interpret individuals' work. We should get just an idea that who did what kind of a work. And those LR manuscripts will at least give you an idea that in your thesis, if you are reviewing it for thesis, your thesis should not miss out any of the literature. I mean, any of the citations of that particular LR manuscript. If you are going for a research paper, the significant contribution which is mentioned in those LR manuscripts should not be missed out in your research paper. So that is the basic idea, because at one single LR manuscript you are getting 70, 80 different LRs, right? Uh, Moving further, let me know about cross-disciplinary approach-based research gap with example. I suppose I have answered this questions while discussing the session, but still, to give you one more answer, I mean, to give you an answer about, say, for example, I want to understand the Google mapping and its impact on the profitability of any organization. Say, for example, DMart. In India, DMart is a very popular retail chain. So I want to understand the impact of Google mapping on the profitability of DMart. Now, understanding the profitability of DMart is basically the concern of our finance people, and this Google mapping and all would be from technology side. So what we are trying to do is we are combining the technology with the finance and writing up something. This is known as a cross-disciplinary approach. So if you keep your live location, I mean, if you keep your location on and enter with the enter with the DMart store, then Google will fetch that which uh, mobile signal, I mean, which areas a signal your mobile is picking up, and for how many time it is picking up that particular signal. So the more the time you spend inside the DMart store, there is a very high probability that the amount of bill would be more, right? So this is how, and when the amount of bill is more, definitely that is going to enhance the profitability of DMart store. So this is one of the example of cross disciplinary approach. You can think of that in your domain, in your particular domain, how can you take the help from the other domain? I'll give you one more example. Say, for example, we are working upon service quality management, service quality. Now, service quality is considered to be the domain of marketing. Marketing people used to work on service quality. By using those concepts of service quality, we have applied fuzzy AHP. Now, fuzzy AHP is the operation people. Fuzzy AHP is generally the concept of operation research people. And because it was an operation research people, I mean operation research concept, we club these two concepts together.
And we come up with the research paper which has used the applications of fuzzy AHP for service quality to measure the service quality, so-called model. So this is another example of cross-disciplinary approach. You can have several such cross-disciplinary approach as a part of a research camp. If you could show us an example of Webster Watson's concept metric, it will be great help. Again, we have shown that concept matrix with our presentation. However, to understand these things in further detail, say for example, if I'm working with supply chain management, so what I will do is I will divide the supply chain concepts. I mean, I will bifurcate those concepts into small concepts such as uh, supply chain, performance management, green supply chain, service supply chain. So these are going to be my subparts. And for each subparts, I will be looking for the research paper. I mean, I'll take up one research paper. I'll search that is it belong to green supply chain? Is it belong to service supply chain? Where it is? And if it is belong to green or service supply chain, I will further divide that in. Is it a conceptual paper? Is it a literature review paper? Is it an empirical testing paper, or is it a case study? So this will be the subpart, I mean subpart of the subpart. So this is how you can use those Webster Watson's concept matrix to actually identify all those paper that you have collected, and you can bifurcate those paper in a systematic way, so that in future you will come to know that okay, this many number of case studies are available for green supply chain, this many empirical papers are available for green supply chain, this many literature review papers are available for green supply chain. Another question was how to initiate the LR for edited book. Frankly speaking, I do not prefer to have literature review from a book, except for statistics and mathematics, right? So only for statistical and mathematical aspects we should refer a book. Otherwise, we should not refer a book. We should more focused on referring the literature review research papers. Only problem with the book is, however, the latest book you are picking up, the latest edition of the book you are picking up, they are unable to actually keep the hold of everything which is going on latestly, recently in your field. And that's why books are considered to be the weak literature as compared to research paper, because research paper will always give you the latest trend, latest idea. And there is another question: can we cite different chapters from the same editor's book? Editor book, is there any problem? No, there is no problem of citing the different chapters. Even rather, let me talk to you straightforward. Neither with APA nor with MLA there is any provision to write down the chapter numbers. Correct. So I mean, nobody come to know that whether your references are from chapter 1 and then chapter 7 or not. People can only understand the book number, the edition number, and the page numbers, right? So absolutely, there is no problem of taking the several chapters from the same edited book. But again, as I discussed earlier, try to avoid the books as far as possible. Then there was a question, there are some questions on articulations, writing the research paper, articulation. Now on this articulation, the first question that arises, that is on, say for example, in structure of LR manuscript, please discuss the importance of introduction paragraph. You have discussed 5 phases of literature review, starting with search and assessment phase. My question is whether we directly start with this phase or we need to write an introductory paragraph discussing the concept of our topic. I suppose, if I'm not wrong, this was with writing the literature review manuscript. And when we talk about literature review manuscript, you have to directly start with this search and assessment phase rather than putting up any introductory paragraph, because the search and assessment phase itself will give the reader an idea how you started searching the literature review. Because whosoever is a reader of the literature LR, whosoever are uh, the reader of the LR manuscript, they are considered as they are basically knowing the basic concepts. And because they are knowing the basic concepts, there is no need to start with the introductory paragraph for LR manuscript. Yeah, the introductory paragraph are required for other manuscripts, but not for LR manuscripts. There is another question. Can we write an objective of conducting the LR study in introductory paragraph? Again, as I said, that if you are talking about literature review manuscript, there is no need for introductory paragraph. If you are asking me to, if you are asking the same question to me about any other kind of a manuscript, right, then in introduction you should not write the objective, because objective should be written in the research methodology, in the literature review section and research methodology section. LR review in thematic manner with example. Okay, explain the literature review in thematic manner. Now, thematic manner means you divide your entire literature review chapter for thesis or literature review section for research paper theme wise. Now, if I talk about theme wise, it means you first write down the say for example, let me take an example of supply chain. So I start with the first theme as supply chain management. So we'll write down one paragraph with everything related to supply chain. The next theme would be the further theme of, say, service supply chain. So I will write down something on service supply chain. The third theme would be performance of service supply chain. So we'll write down one entire paragraph on measuring the performance of service supply chain. The next paragraph would be, say, for example, importance of green supply chain in service supply. Service supply chain. So we'll write down entire paragraph on that theme. So what exactly we are doing under thematic manner? We take up one theme at a time. We prepare one paragraph on that theme. We move on to the next paragraph with the sub theme. Again, the sub theme, and this is how by last paragraph of the LR section, we reach exactly to our topic part. This is what is known as the thematic literature review. Could you explain the layout pattern when we write the literature review? Means the order and domains. There is no strict layout pattern, but you can choose your own pattern. Thematic is one of the way of writing the literature review. So here we divide the entire literature theme wise. Beside thematic, you can go ahead with the what you can say year wise citations. You start with the oldest citation first and gradually reach to your latest citations. That is another way of layout. That is another pattern for layout. The third pattern would be starting with the less number of cited research paper to the highest cited research papers. That is the third layout or the third pattern. So you decide that which pattern you want to follow. And there is nothing like this pattern is an excellent pattern, excellent pattern, and the other one is a weak pattern. No, there is nothing like those. You can decide your pattern, but stick to that pattern. Then don't jump into that pattern. Once you decide the pattern, that you will go year wise, right, chronologically. Then you have to stick to that chronology only. But then after, at a later stage, don't jump from chronological pattern to thematic pattern, or from chronological pattern to any other pattern. That should be kept in mind. There is another questions that was on some people have also published methods paper in which they discuss about just the methodology, in which they discuss about just the methodology they are adopting for the research. So here in the methodological LR section, which you have explained in this and method paper, same or there are different. First of all, so I'm highly confused whether a methodological paper, I mean a paper which was based upon purely method, that can be published in a good quality paper, or I mean good quality journal or not. Because see, I really do not believe in paid journals. And when it comes to this paid journal, na, so those paid journals will publish anything and everything. Correct. So yep, if those paper are published with the high end journals, they are not known as a methodological paper, neither they are a methodological paper, they are called theory builders. And theory builder paper are considered to be the best level of qualitative research, right? To reach to those theoretical, I mean to reach to those level of writing the conceptual paper or a theory builder paper, we really require to have an in-depth understanding about the subject's matter. So probably you might have read those paper which are theory builders, and if they are theory builders, their LR sections are completely different than the LR sections which you are talking about. So to answer your question in simple nutshell, no, these two are two different things. I mean, method of paper which we are talking at present and the methodology which you are talking, these are two different aspects. They are not the same aspects. Moving on to some of the common questions, such as these are the questions which were not a part of earlier. So could you please tell me something about Prisma checklist? Many paper of systematic literature review have mentioned it. Actually, Prisma is not the matter of systematic literature review. However, it is a method of meta-analysis, because Prisma stands for preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So it is actually not purely a systematic literature review. It is a combination of systematic review and meta-analysis part. And when we talk about meta-analysis is a statistical method to be applied on literature review. I mean, even in literature review, people are finding out which is that one particular word or a keyword used how many number of times in that research paper. And based upon that, there are, I'm not the man from a meta-analysis part, but yep, people used to calculate the kappa T and Q square. And I mean, I just heard one or two terminology of meta-analysis, but they are applying some statistical tools on systematic literature review, and Prisma is a combination of systematic review along with the meta-analysis, because the name itself suggests as preferred reporting items for systematic review and meta-analysis. That is what is the short form. I mean, that is what is the full form of Prisma. Another question is, could you suggest the format or a structure to be followed when one is doing the mixed method research and there is a process being followed along with the usual variable as well? I am skeptical about which structure or format you are looking for. Are you looking for the structure or format of literature review for this mixed method research? If your answer is yes, then we have, I mean, there is no specific structure or format separately for mixed method research. You can go ahead with the structure or the way we have explained during this SRAM model, SRAM. There is another question, are paid journals less valuable? Answer is, paid journals are no more valuable. There is nothing called less value or more value for paid journal. Paid journals are not at all valuable, right? It is only the mandate of UGC or somewhere or the other. We are feeling like everything is a paid, and that's why we go for a paid journal. I am totally against the paid journal, and as per me, paid journals has no value. So there is no question of less value. They have no values. Please put some more light on meta-analysis and meta-synthesis. Okay, as I discussed earlier, meta-analysis is a statistical way of identifying how many time a particular word is used and what was the R value, I mean value of correlationship between two major terminologies used in that research paper. And based upon that, people calculate something and come up with the systematic way of analysis that is known as a meta-analysis. Honestly, accepting that I am not the man of meta-analysis, I just know the basics of meta-analysis and not the in-depth. So I'm unable to comment anything on that meta-analysis part. Whatever we discussed was a meta-synthesis, and meta-synthesis means here we are not going to apply any statistical tool. Neither I discussed any statistical tool in any of these sections, right? So our pure focus is on quality of the research paper, quality journal search, quality review, quality writing, and quality publications. We are not going to apply any statistical tool on this collective literature review. That is what is known as meta-synthesis. And our entire focus was on a meta-synthesis part. Could you please elaborate the difference between narrative, integrated, and theoretical literature review? Narrative review of literature is limited only to narrate all possible or available literatures. So that is the basic functionality of narrative is only to narrate. They will not integrate, they will not combine more than one different themes. They just pick up one theme and narrate the entire theme. Integrated, on the contrary, pick up the several theme and they integrate those themes. And theoretical literature review means they club several theories of your topic, several theories around your topic. If you talk about the motivation, right, we know that there are several theories of motivation. It could be the need hierarchy, or could be theory XY or theory Z. So theoretical literature review club all those theories of your topic together and review those theories. This is theoretical literature review. There was another question. Can you please elaborate about H index and G index? I am sure that probably I have not talked anything about the H and G index during this session, but still, to answer your question, I mean, as such, this is beyond the scope of this webinar, but still to answer your question, H index is the index which measures the quality of a researcher. How good you as a researcher on the landscape of research, that is measured through your H index. And H index indicates that number of papers got the equal number of citations. It means if I have 4 papers and in that 4 papers, 2 of my paper have received 2 citations, remaining 2 have received 0 citations, then my H index is going to be 2, right? So that is what is called H index. However, as I said, that it really requires the in-depth understanding about measuring the quality of, quantifying the quality of research, right? So that is called H index. But the problem with the H index is, with every year, with every passage of time, when you write more number of paper, your H index is always going to increase. So there are 3 limitations of H index. One, it will not count one single paper, but it will count all the papers together. Second, it will not consider the age of the researcher. Age of the researcher, it means if I have 30 years of 30 years of research experience, definitely my H index is going to be very high. And if you want to compare me with some researcher with only 3 years of research experience, so H index, my H index would be very high, his or her H index would be very low, and you can say that, sir, you are a better researcher than him. Sorry, that is not the way. So the second limitation of H index is it will not consider the age of the researcher into consideration. And the third problem with H index is it will not count the age of the research paper. I mean, if one of my research paper is written in 1990, definitely it will have more citations than some with a paper which is written in 2018. So that is also not considered by H index. So to overcome that limitation of H index, 3 more indexes are generated, known as G index, M index, and AR index, right? But again, as I said, to understand all these things, you really require, this is entirely a different topic of subjects of discussions altogether and beyond the scope of this particular this particular webinar. Now, a few more questions were, some systematic review mention about the period from which they have selected the articles, like last 5 years, 10 years. Sir, do we get to know that which period do we select, like 5 years, 10 year, 15 year? And is it necessary that we have to mention any period, or we can just take any article? Okay, your question is too long, but I'll cut it over here. So, yeah, there is nothing like you select only 5 year, 10 year, or 15 years. It is purely the researcher who will decide how many years are important, if it is, or else you can directly take any research paper of your field without mentioning the year. So there is no need for last 5 year, 10 year, or 15 year kind of limitations, unless your subject is something like that. Now continuing with your question, and if the period is mentioned, then does it mean that we cannot mention very old paper which have coined few important terms? For example, Day and James 1955 for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. First of all, I disagree with that aspects only, that you should limit yourself only to last 5 year, 10 year, or 15 years. So you can decide whatever you feel fit for your subject's matter. One. And second, even if you decide for last 5 year, 10 year, or 15 years, you can very well go back to all those basic papers, because this is something even that we have mentioned during our session as well. Old is always gold. If you want to conduct some statistical method on reliability, you cannot go without touching that Cronbach's paper of 1955. You have to touch Cronbach because he is the father of reliability. So even if you consider 5-10 years of a period, and if you still want to touch upon those very old paper, you can touch upon. No need to worry about that. You are free to touch upon those paper. Your most of the papers would be from last 10 years if you are limiting yourself to last 10 years. Okay, another question is, I am not able to convey what I am trying to ask this question. I suppose you conveyed the paper. I will try to put it across that while writing the systematic literature review, is it okay to stick to just one platform like Plumbed or Scopus? I mean, can we write that we have followed only one platform to search the paper? We have taken into account only those articles which were open access. And if not, then should we buy, or somehow we need to get the access of all related articles to write the systematic literature review available on the platform, so as to take sure that all related articles has been taken into account. First of all, you need not to write down the platform from where you have collected those datas. Still, if you want to write down, you can write down the name of a platform. Absolutely okay. Even if we talk about a Scopus has around 4,000 journals. So considering only one platform of Scopus, you have a huge and wide scope to get the variety of the paper. One. Second, your point of concern is open access. I already answered this things in the beginning of the session, that you need not to limit yourself only to those open access. There are websites which will allow you to access all good quality articles, right? You just need to know how to download those articles, and these are some of the websites. But yeah, I am on a public platform, so I am unable to answer name those websites. However, there are certain websites which are available for accessing any paper, any good quality paper, and you can download those paper for your future references too. So with this, I just rest from my side. I answered all your queries, and now we open up this entire session for you all. Now you are free to ask any questions. I request participants to unmute their audio and ask the questions straightforward. You can ask the questions by unmuting your audio, please. Hello.
So I wanted to ask why UGC has listed so many journals which are paid. Like we have to pay somewhere around 80,000 to 1 lakh to publish your article. So for a PhD research scholar, like it's a compulsion that we have to publish our articles in UGC listed journals. Then it becomes very sad that we have to pay such a big amount.
Okay, to answer your question, I want to put up 2 points. Point number one, if you refer UGC's list, UGC has divided all the journals. I mean, the latest list, earlier it were having four different uh, zones, groups. Now UGC has revised it to only two groups. If you refer UGC's two groups, the list been published by UGC, Group 1 consists of several journals being published, several journals been accepted by UGC. Group 2 consists, in Group 2, UGC have clearly mentioned all Scopus or Web of Science journals. That means UGC has not compelled us to publish only with their journals, the list of UGC that is published. UGC has accepted that any journal which is a part of a Scopus or a part of Web of Science would ABDC or Web of Science would be considered as a quality journal, and your any publication with such a Scopus or ABDC or Web of Science would be considered as a publication for your PhD as well, right? So first, UGC has not compelled us only to limit only to those journals which are paid in nature, because in Scopus there are 80% journals which are unpaid in nature. In ABDC, there are 100% journals which are unpaid in nature. If any journal will ask for any payments, now ABDC will throw them out immediately. With ABDC and Web of Science, there are totally unpaid journals. 0% paid journal available with ABDC or Web of Science. Our only concern is, our only problem as a research scholar is, we are not looking at those qualities. I was actually attending one of the webinar being organized by FIIB before a few days, and it was seven editor-in-chief of the journals which were sitting together, and some of the participants had asked the questions that, sir, should we pay for it? And 7 out of 5 has straight away said that no, you should not pay a single penny. And they answered that I'm publishing since last 20 years, 25 years, and I did not make the payment. In line with them, I had my 7 papers with ABDC, and I did not make a single penny as of now as a payment to any of these journals. So making the payments means compromising on our quality. You have to choose between quality and a payment. Any one will go, either a quality or a payment. So first, take that thought out from your mind that only payment is the solution for a research paper. One. And second point which I want to put it is, because you started your question is why UGC made such journals into their list which are charging money from students. And answer of this question is very simple and straightforward: corruption in our country. That's it.
Thank you, sir. So this UGC has made this change recently.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Now there are only two groups, G1 and G2. And if you want to refer those groups and the journals,
Mhm.
you can search it on uh, the website of Savitribai Phule, Pune University.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
You can just search it on Google, UGC care list, Savitribai Phule, Pune University, because the head of UGC committee for the list was a professor from Savitribai Phule, Pune University. So that university has kept that entire list on that website, and you can refer that particular list, and you will come to know about the group 1 and group 2. It is clearly mentioned. Actually, I undertook one another webinar on this journal, wherein I have shown this entire list of UGC group 1 and group 2, and the circular been published by UGC that group 2 consists of all the journals listed with Scopus, NABDC and Web of Science.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Any more question? I request participants to directly unmute and ask the questions, please. Because there are so many messages in chat box, I'm unable to read all of them. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah, ma'am, please.
sir, if I have taken some tables, tested tables from a thesis to implement to build up a questionnaire for my research, so I need to cite that literature that I have taken that from the particular literature, past literature. The table needs proper citation.
Yes, ma'am. You need to provide the due credit to everyone, right? So citation is the only thing which we can provide to early researcher. We are not providing anything to early researcher. Only citation is the credit which we can provide to them, and we must cite. I use the word we must cite each of the literature from where we have prepared our questionnaire. There is nothing wrong about it. Even if we say that I made a questionnaire with 31 variables and those 31
Yes.
variables are cited from 5 papers. Absolutely okay. We must.
Sir, if the variables are cited from one paper also, we can go ahead with that. That we have taken the variables from that one paper.
Uh, you can go ahead with it, but normally when we have paper, sorry, variables only from one paper, na, we become biased
Yes.
towards that author. We become biased towards that author, and generally it is not considered to be a sign of a quality. We should always refer several papers. We should always refer several researchers so that we will get
Yes.
the gist of various people. Right?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Hello.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, the mixed method question was my question. I think it didn't come out properly. Essentially, what I wanted to know is basically I'm doing an exploratory research. So my first stage is the qualitative stage, and then I have my variables which I'm doing in the quantitative stage. So with respect to that, is there a so I know you mentioned chronologically or thematically, etc. So in this case, does it go qualitative first and then quantitative in terms of the literature review? Because I'm following a process in terms of, following a QFD model approach in my qualitative part. So
Exactly, ma'am.
do I do that flow is basically what I want to ask.
Okay, ma'am. Now I got your question
Yeah.
properly. Yes,
Huh.
yes, ma'am. So whenever you are putting up your literature review, I feel like you are asking about writing the thesis part. Correct,
Correct,
ma'am?
correct. Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes. I'm
yes,
I'm
ma'am.
talking. My
That
topic is
is about
already been
thesis.
approved.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure, sure, ma'am. I
Yeah.
got your point. So yeah, so then in that case, your basic division of the research literature review writing chapter would be
Chapter.
first, yeah, chapter would be first quali part and another one is the quanti part. Now
Okay.
under that quali part, you can further subdivide it thematically or chronologically or
Huh.
citation wise. Now that is up to you. Right,
Okay.
but yeah, definitely. Your first basic division would be quali part first and a quanti part at the later stage because this is going to be your sequence for your entire work as well, right?
Yes. So it
Yes,
follows
ma'am.
the research design basically, and then within
Great.
that, I follow the structure. Then that is totally my choice, or does it
Yeah.
follow the the logical flow? So the choice between chronological versus thematic can also be based on how the research design is structured.
No, ma'am.
No.
Actually, better way always. The better way is a thematic way.
Okay.
Chronology is not much popular in the field of management,
Huh.
right?
Huh.
It is more for a social science, particularly when people are discussing about historical aspects and all, or a
Got.
medical science when people discuss that first this kind of medicine were discovered, then at later stage this kind of medicine were discovered. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because I have public, I mean I have a participant from several other stream apart from management,
Correct.
so I go ahead with all possible options. But
Huh.
yeah, if you are from management side,
Huh.
thematic is always considered to be the better way of presentation because that will go with the logic. And the reader would also come to know that when you are talking about, say for example, supply chain, your
Huh.
entire paragraph will talk about supply chain. It will not enter into service supply chain.
Correct.
So that
Got
will give a more clarity to research. I mean, sorry, to reader as well.
it.
So
Got it.
should go ahead with this partner.
Got
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Sorry, can I
Thank you.
ask one small other question?
Why not? Please go ahead.
Related to this only, when I'm following, say, the thematic approach, I would, there's usually the expectation. I don't know whether that's a university difference, but usually an expectation of finding Indian, papers as well as foreign author papers in equal proportion or whatever, right? Now, there can always be a possibility that the nature of variable is such that there are not so many Indian papers available. right? So
Mm.
then in that
Okay.
case, lesser number of papers with more weightage, as in like more content picked up from a single paper would be the only choice I have, right? If the
Mhm.
total number of papers available for my variable are only lesser. Like, because you
Mhm.
was, I understand your stress on, and I appreciate that, where you're saying more papers the better, or like more relevant papers the better, right? But if my overall pool for a particular variable is lesser, then what does one do? Then what are the choices?
Okay. Yeah, then in that case, we normally are not left out with more choices because work has not much been carried out on that particular area, right?
Correct. Huh.
So we do not left out with more choices, but to include, to focus more on whatever the small quantity that we are available with,
Huh.
right?
Yes.
And another aspect is, you discuss about the mixture of Indian authors vis-a-vis foreign authors.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
So, ma'am, again, there is no very stringent norms that we should have only the foreigner, non-Indian paper, non-Indian origin papers or non-Indian researchers paper,
Huh.
right? Because as such, understanding it as one should always have in a quality research. It's not like that it is an Indian paper or it is a foreign paper.
Correct.
Correct, because even one single paper been written by three authors and all three belong to three different continents. It happens.
Hmm. Hmm.
One is from Europe, other is American, other one is from Asia. They
Hmm.
join together. So in such case, what should I call? Should I call it as a European paper, American paper, or Indian paper?
Correct. Huh.
That's
Got
not
it.
the case, right?
Huh.
So definitely that proportion has nothing much to do with be it the
Huh.
Indian paper, be it the non-Indian paper.
Huh.
But yeah, when there are less number of paper available, if the area is such, then of course we don't left out with more choices, and we have to stress more on those papers.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
There is one more question. So somebody mentioned that mic is not working for them, and he or she has asked about the research gap. Now that research gap is nothing but you read several research papers, you prepare um, either Watson method of preparing the list, or you follow the Cooper's method of listing, and post those listings, you will come to know that in which area less work has been done, and that will yield a good quality research gap. Another best way to identify the research gap is cross-disciplinary approach. You are from the field of finance, take the help from your marketing or HR friends and ask them how jointly an HR, marketing, and finance can do. Because that kind of a paper always have a very good weightage in quality journals, and the probability of getting selection of such papers would increase like anything. Because nowadays, one single paper of one single theme, FT50 journals are not really interested in that particular thing. So this is how you should find out the research gap and should proceed with. Yeah. Any more question from audience, please?
Sir, that you explained how to interpret the LR manuscript in our PhD work, so I couldn't be clear on that part, sir.
Okay. I want to say that if you pick up any LR manuscript, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you let me know just your area so that I'll go ahead with that area?
So job
In which
satisfaction areas.
Okay, job satisfaction. So say for example, you pick up any LR manuscript in that area of job satisfaction. In one single
Yes,
LR,
sir.
LR manuscript, you will get around 70, 80 different work that has already been conducted, right? So
Yes, sir.
yeah, so that LR manuscript should be used to identify who are those 70, 80 researchers who did a good job in your area, who did a wonderful job in your area. That means you
Yes,
just
sir.
identify those 70, 80 people. And then after, whenever you write your own thesis, you should not miss out any of those 70 or 80. You should have each one of them in your thesis, because these are those people who have contributed significantly. But If you
Okay.
write some research paper, then in that case, all
Yes.
70, 80 cannot be a part of. Then you identify that from those 70, 80, which are the top 10 or top 15 who had more work than the remaining 60, 65, and include only those
Okay.
15, 20 in your research paper. So I divided your entire work in two parts: when you are writing thesis,
Yes.
when you are writing
Mm-hmm.
research paper, right?
Fine, sir. Fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any more questions, please?
Sir, I have one question. So
Please.
the M in the SRAM model is manuscripting. So when we talk about manuscripting, what I understood from the proceedings of this conference, that manuscripting is something when we do a paper basically which is rich of literature and does not have any statistical analysis in it, but when we write a research paper which also includes some statistics and some analysis, so that also counts as manuscript, or when we talk about manuscript, it's just the literature review paper. It's
Okay,
the
okay.
slight confusion.
And I got your question. Actually, uh, for this webinar, our focus point was on literature review, and hence, whenever we use the word manuscript, for us, the manuscript stands for only literature review manuscript. However, do not understand that manuscripts are always the literature review. Even the research paper which you write or which you understand, which has introduction, LR, research methodology, data collection, data analysis, findings, conclusions, that is also known as a manuscript. It is also a manuscript, right? But because precisely the focus of this particular webinar was only on literature review, we talked about only the manuscript based upon literature review. So please don't have a misconception that literature review papers are known as manuscript. No, they are also manuscript, as well as the paper which you are talking about are also manuscript only. I hope
Okay,
I'm
thank
clear.
you.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
thank you, ma'am. Yeah, any more question from audience? I request you to unmute and you can ask the question straightforward. Somebody has
Sir,
mentioned,
sir,
yeah,
any
please.
light on that? Sir, any light on self-plagiarism in thesis, sir?
Uh,
So in what ways the we will be caught for self-plagiarism in our dissertation?
Ma'am, actually, one should always understand when we talk about the plagiarism, one should understand that how plagiarism software works. Any
Yes,
plagiarism
sir.
software works on two basic parameters. Parameter number one, you pick up the entire statement, entire sentence of any other researcher, any other paper, and put it directly in your thesis or in your paper. That is considered to be plagiarism. Another way to consider the plagiarism is uh, when you take up the last word of the one sentence and the first word of the another sentence saved. Correct. That also considered to be plagiarism. Now your question is on self-plagiarism. When you publish a paper and if it is your own work, it would not be counted and considered as the plagiarism. So need not to worry on the self-plagiarism part because it is your own work and you have all the rights for your due credit for it. Plagiarism would be considered only when you take up the other's paper and directly put their sentences without rephrasing it. We call it a paraphrasing. So you don't
Paraphrasing.
go for paraphrasing, you directly copy and paste it in your thesis. That would be counted as a plagiarism, and that is only the matter of worry for us, not the self plagiarism.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Yeah, somebody has mentioned an example of cross-disciplinary impact of employees' performance on customer satisfaction. Yeah, that could be an example of cross-disciplinary because employees' performance would be an HR-related aspect, and customer satisfaction would be a marketing aspect. So yeah, that is one more example of it. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, ma'am.
Sir, I've joined late, so I'm sorry if you have answered this question earlier. So my question is, when you have discussed about the systematic review, under which you have mentioned 2 points like meta-analysis and meta-synthesis. So you have also mentioned that we use quantitative methods in meta-analysis. So my
Yes,
question
ma'am.
is, what are those quantitative methods specifically? And sir, next is, I also find it different. Like, what is the importance of meta synthesis? Like the explanation which you have given in the PPT, that it is only only integrate the analysis of several studies, and it does not apply any statistics. Then this is the with this definition, this is the basic thing which we do in every paper. Like, we synthesize and we analyze the literature. This is the basic thing of a literature review. Then how it is different in a simple literature review and systematic review?
Okay, I understand both question. Uh, uh, First, to answer your first question, several methods of meta-analysis. Frankly speaking, I'm not the man of meta-analysis. Of course, I do know only the gist of meta-analysis. But yeah, these meta-analysis guys used to collect the literature, several literatures. They analyze which word is repeated the maximum number of times. So they use those methodology to calculate number of times one particular word is used, and then after they applying some method. I can just name those methods because I am not the expert. So they use Kapati method, they use Q square method. These are ways and means of meta-analysis, and there are some softwares available for meta-analysis. So meta-analysis is ultimately nothing but they pick up the literature and they apply some statistical tool on literature. Now, moving on to meta synthesis and your question that in every research paper, I mean, you are talking about a normal research paper or a thesis, we club several papers together and we put them in a proper synthesis, I mean, in a proper sense. When I talk about the meta synthesis, and particularly in context of systematic literature review rather than a simple literature review, what we used to do is we will not. I mean, normally what researcher used to do, we put down the word in Google or Google Scholar. Say, for example, organizational stress, and whatever the journal and a paper that we get the first, we put it in our database. We reach our database by those papers and we start writing those papers. Now that is a simple way. In a systematic way, we don't go like that. What I have explained, we first find out the paper which is the best paper in our field, probably from FT50 journal or any other journals of your field. Then after we find out only those papers which are related to that particular paper. And this is how we go, and we simply do not accept anything and everything that we have. One. Second, under meta synthesis, we advocate you to write down entire manuscript, entire research paper exclusively on literature review. So if you search LR paper, literature review paper in your field, I'm sure that you will be getting those papers. And those papers would not only put down only the literature reviews the way we used to put down in our thesis or in our other research paper, but they critically analyze those literature review and put down the relationship of those literature review with other research papers in a systematic manner. And that is what is making that particular systematic literature review based research paper a unique literature review research paper than the normal literature review which we used to write down in our thesis or as a part of our research paper.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes.
Sir,
Hi,
in
you can.
a dissertation also, we can mention this literature review in this systematic way, or in
You you
dissertation
you should
normal.
you should mention only systematic literature review because if you are following the methodology which we have explained, right, you are
Yes, sir.
genuinely doing the work in a proper stance. I mean, you are following the steps and you are doing the work, and the same has to be kept in your dissertation or PhD work as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. If any more question, you can unmute your mic and you can ask the question straightforward. Somebody has asked which method is used for data analysis in exploratory research. Ma'am, I cannot answer this question, which method, because there are hundreds of the methods can be used for exploratory research. It depends upon your research objective. What is your objective? And then that research objective will decide which method will just which satisfied your research objective. It is a very huge question that you have asked. So if I list down, probably I could list down more than 100 methods of analysis for exploratory research. Okay. Any more questions from audience? You can unmute your mic and you can ask directly, please. Hello, you can unmute your mic and you can straightforward. I mean, you can ask the questions directly. Is there any more questions from audience? Okay, shall we consider? Yeah, okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Sir,
ma'am.
there is one more question. Sir, I have attended your previous webinar also on the paper writing. Sir, on which you told us to search paper on elsewhere journal finder. Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
then
Yes,
one of my friend tried to use that journal finder, and then where she was asked to submit the abstract of the paper and the keywords. So what
correct,
we
ma'am.
found that the she had mentioned keywords which were not present in that abstract, but were present in the paper, but they had not asked the paper. So we found that just because those keywords were not in the abstract, the journal finder was not providing us adequate journal. So my question is it required to have we should have the keywords in the abstract also? Then only it will give us good results.
As such, the first criteria is that all the keywords which you mention should be part of either your abstract or your title. Because if you were there in my last webinar, then probably how to fix up the title and how to write the abstract when we discussed that point of a time we discussed this point that each of your keywords that you mentioned, right, it should be either a part of your title or a part of your abstract. This is the basic
Okay.
norm for a good quality journal, for any good quality journal. I mean, having the keyword which is not the part of your title or which is not the part of your abstract, that itself puts up a question mark, which is considered to be the correct one. Should I consider your keyword as the correct reference, I mean, correct measures of your entire manuscript, or should I consider the title and abstract as the correct measure of your manuscript? I mean, as a reader, first of all, I am confused, right? What you are
Okay.
going to discuss about? Are you going to discuss about your title, whatever is there, or you are going to discuss about your keywords? So that itself is a non-synchronization, and very well, such non-synchronization would definitely confuse the artificial intelligence of elsewhere as well, right? I'm sure the artificial intelligence of elsewhere were confused with those contradictions, and then that's precisely why they are not able to answer your, probably to answer a good results in front of you, right?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome. Dr. Manisha has asked a question that, sir, with reference to my previous question, your answer is that you should focus more on most number of cited, I mean, more number of cited papers. However, what should be the limit of time with reference to the most cited paper? Okay. I feel like, Dr. Manisha, you are asking about the time limit. The best way to measure the quality of a paper is citation per year. That means if a research paper is 10-year old, and received 125 citations, then on an average in 1 year, the paper has received 12.5 citations. And if you compare it with the paper which is just 3 year old and received, say for example, 55 citations, then 55 divided by 3, you will be getting an answer around 17, 18. So on an average, it received 18 citations. So simply even do not consider the most number of citations, because you, in your question, you mentioned, should I consider the basic original paper or should I consider the most number of cited paper? I answered that it should be most number of cited papers. However, the better answer of this question is always consider number of citations per year. Find out what is the average number of citations per year, and that is considered to be the basic criteria. That means now you are out from the time limit as well. Now you have put both the papers, a paper which is just 3 year old and a paper which is 11 year old. You just put up both the paper on a common platform by dividing it with the number of years. And then after you compare and then find out which one is the better paper. Yeah. Any more questions with audience?